We're live.
Hello, everyone. How is everyone? Can you see me? Just type a yes or a thumbs up in the box if you can. This is the first time we've used this platform. Hello from Minnesota. Okay, I'm just gonna assume everyone can hear us and see us. How is everyone tonight? Thank you so much for joining. We're so glad you're here. We are, oh, there we are. The yeses are coming through. Perfect. We are going to get started in just a sec. We're just waiting for some other people to join us. But while we wait, a few of you have already typed into the chat box where you are tuning in from. But I'm curious if there's anyone who hasn't put their location in yet. Where are you tuning in from tonight? We have people in Georgia, Ireland, Hawaii, Minnesota, Sacramento.
I want to give a shout out to the OMB followers. Thank you so much for joining tonight.
We've got LA, Chicago, New York City. Aw. Awesome. Great. So glad you guys are here from OC.
Static.
If you have already typed in your location, I would love to hear, how did you hear about the event? Because we've advertised it in a few different places. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to reach you guys. LA. Oh, hi, Mom.
Wait, Maria?
My mom's on here.
Oh, hi, Mom.
Oh, Instagram. There we are.
Instagram, okay.
Email, sweet. So this is the first time we've used this platform. It's a little different. I know everybody's probably used to Zoom. I'm going to get started in just a sec. Burbank. Oh, hi, Ben. Just sit back and relax for a little. Is anyone on here? Did anyone attend our last event on how to divorce a narcissist? You can just type a yes or no in the box.
Yes.
Hi, Carrie. I'm glad you got on.
Hi, Carrie.
Okay, for those of you that are typing no into the box for not having seen the last webinar we did, we will send out a link to that webinar as along with the link to rewatch this webinar. So if that's something that interests you, you'll definitely have access to that. All right, I'm going to get started in just a minute. Last question before we go. How is everybody feeling tonight? What's one word to describe how you're feeling, how you're doing, what your mood is like, what your day was like? Yes, Natasha, I hear you. It's a good one. Exhausted. Hopeful, I love that. Overwhelmed, oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Drained, divorce trial next week. Oh.
Yeah.
We're going to get through it for sure. Sad. Yeah, range of emotions. It's a good thing we're all here tonight.
Ooh. Okay.
Okay.
Hopeful.
Just signed our settlement.
Overwhelmed.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. I invite you to just take a deep breath, sit back, enjoy this. As a reminder, this is being recorded. If you are frantically taking notes, that's awesome, but also you're going to have the link to rewatch this, so you're going to have the information in one place. So at this time, I'm just going to jump in. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, for taking the time. We're so glad that you're here. We're excited to share this information with you. This topic is something that is near and dear to all of our hearts, but Nadine, Jackie, and Anne have all been through a high conflict divorce. They've all co-parented. And we lost Nadine. And I have been impacted personally because I was a child of a high conflict divorce and I was dragged through the middle of that. And so we're all happy to be sharing this advice. I'm going to get Nadine back in here. Give me one sec. Where did she go? There she is.
Sorry, I was fiddling around.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I own it.
Welcome back, Nadine.
Welcome back.
Here, let's go, girls.
Let's go.
Good, you
Okay,
can
well,
join
I
us.
will start by introducing you, Nadine. Nadine Macaluso, Dr. Nadine Macaluso, is a licensed marriage and family therapist. After successfully divorcing the infamous Wolf of Wall Street, Dr. Nay became an expert in personality disorders, relationships, and parenting. And she now works with couples and individuals at all stages of relationships, teaching them to communicate and collaborate effectively. So Nadine, thanks for joining us tonight.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Jackie Miller. Hi, Jackie. Jackie
Hi.
is a high conflict divorce coach and consultant. She's also a mother of two, and she founded her practice after experiencing a high conflict divorce. So she now dedicates herself to helping individuals navigate the harrowing process of divorce, offering high-level strategies and support to empower her clients. Thanks for joining us, Jackie.
Thank you, Clara.
And last but not least, Anne Grant is a family law attorney, and she specializes in divorce. As a lawyer and a mother of three and a survivor of a high conflict divorce herself, Anne knows what it takes to go from surviving to thriving. That is her motto. And she now empowers her clients to do the same, emphasizing boundaries in and out of the courtroom and utilizing a holistic approach in navigating the divorce process. Anne, thank you for joining us.
Happy to be here.
So this time we're going to do things a little bit differently. It's just going to be a conversation amongst mainly our three panelists, and I'll jump in here and there. So we're going to just go right into the first question. And the first question is for you, Anne. Anne, what is the best way to divorce a narcissist when the couple has young children?
Claire, that's such a good question. And I have both tried custody cases involving narcissistic spouses with young children, and I've resolved them through the collaborative process. I'm a big fan of going the collaborative route, and this is why. It's very well suited to this type of situation, particularly where there are young children. In the collaborative process, you and your spouse will work together with a team of professionals to arrive at solutions that are tailored to your family's needs. In contrast, if you were to hire me to go to court and you would go to trial, you're going to spend a lot of money battling it out. And at the end of the day, a judge who's really not familiar with all the nuances and details of your family situation will make orders. So in collaborative, what you do is you sit around a conference room table, or in this day and age, it's more likely that you Zoom, and you have someone like Jackie, who's a coach, involved. And we also work with your therapist, someone like Nadine. And we really try to craft solutions that are in the children's best interest. This approach, I found, is much more effective, less expensive, and much more healing for the entire family. It may be concerning to you because there are more professionals involved, and so it feels like it might cost more. But in my experience, it's really the best money to go spend, and it will ultimately be less expensive than going through a custody trial. Nadine and I are currently working on a collaborative case to matter together, and it involves a daughter who has significant health issues. The parents in this case have been torn apart by their disagreements as to how her treatment should proceed and their various approaches to parenting her. In this case, the mom sets clear boundaries, and the dad just kind of lets the daughter do whatever she wants when she's with him. And so she's what we call a master splitter. And what I mean by that is that she's figured out how to play the parents off of each other and just create total chaos within the family. So Nadine, would you like to talk for a moment about your experience working with me and this particular client, utilizing the collaborative process?
Yes. You know, I am actually a product of divorce. My parents were divorced, and I have been divorced. So this collaborative process has been very illuminating because the way that Anne set it up is that the parents don't agree necessarily. Each have a person that works with them in the collaborative setting, aside from having myself as a therapist. And so what I love about this process is that everybody gets to speak their voice in a manner that is honest, truthful, respectful, because there are other people witnessing it. And so lies, they really can't get told. They get told on things, but in a very respectful manner. And the children are really the main focus. It's not about how the parents feel towards each other. It's about the children. And having 5 children, which you didn't mention, Clara, I have 5 because I have 2 of my own and 3 from my husband. That is who should be focused, because they are helpless, vulnerable individuals involved in this process. I just think that being a part of this process has really been a true gift for everyone involved.
And can everybody see Anne? I lost her on my screen. Okay, so it's just me.
Yeah.
Okay, this was happening before, so we're just gonna roll with this.
She's
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
She's there.
Cool. I see that Lisa's asking a question that relates to this topic. Is a collaborative approach possible when the high conflict party is making false allegations and blame shifting?
So yes, the short answer is yes, and the other answer is, and Nadine referred to this, in the collaborative process, it's a safe container of a number of professionals. So you'll have your lawyer, the other party has their attorney. Usually each party then has a coach like Jackie. Sometimes we'll bring in a child specialist who acts as a neutral to figure out what really is in the children's best interest. And so in this safe container, what it does is it creates accountability. Yes. So particularly in a high conflict situation where everyone is coming together, the person who is acting out in a problem, let's say that's your spouse, is held very accountable by this group of highly skilled professionals who've been trained in this process. And it's almost like that person is seen. You see you.
Yeah.
So what I found is that it's far more effective in arriving at solutions that are in your children's best interest, which as a mother, I feel like that's really where our heart is.
Yes.
That's, really what we're trying to accomplish. And I think it's my experience in the programs these days is you have to understand this, that more and more judges are awarding 50-50 custody. It's not like the old days where if you were the stay-at-home mom or even just the mom, you sort of got the benefit of the doubt and you were awarded the children primarily and the dad got visitation. Those days are over, at least here in California, which is where I practice. And so now really the presumption that you're bumping up against in the courtroom is judges will just throw up their hands and award 50-50. I went through a month-long trial, and at the end of the whole trial, there were a plethora of witnesses, of hundreds of thousands of dollars were spent. And at the end of the day, the judge awarded 50-50 custody. Yep. So I really think in this day and age, Nadine, do you agree that more and more this is like a good approach to try to do what is the right thing and the smart thing?
You know what? I like to call it a fishbowl. Because everybody, like you said, has accountability. So yes, people make false allegations, as Lisa's asking. People blame shifts. However, there are experts. I mean, I went to school for 10 years to study personality pathology, right? Jackie, right? Like you're a divorce coach. You understand this, you're an expert. So you're there with your clients. And your partner has the same, leverage too with his expert. But the experts are there to guide you for the benefit of the family. And that's what counts. Because even when you get divorced, trust me, I've been divorced for 25 years, you're still a family.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, we're going to move on to the next question, which is for Jackie. Jackie, how does someone co-parent when their soon-to-be ex only has nasty responses and accusations every time they communicate?
That is a great question, because there you go. That's the definition of high conflict. And I want to make a point that because some people are sensitive to this, when we say high conflict divorce, those of us professionals in the room that deal with this all the time understand that it's really one party usually that's the high conflict, but to Lisa's point, they like to muddy the waters and sort of cause a lot of confusion and chaos and drama, so that it's hard for other court professionals like judges to really figure out who the problem person is. But so to your point, and what I often do, because it's so important, is you have to develop the skills to deal with that kind of abuse and communication when you are trying to co-parent for the benefit of your children, but you're also constantly aware that, again, court professionals may have eyes on your communications, and that you need to also be perceived as the cooperative parent. So I very much help clients literally with the verbiage, how they respond on texts, how they approach and when they initiate communication with their ex, when to respond, when not to respond. Sometimes you do have to call and get your attorney involved when things really, escalate, if you're trying to manage things on a day-to-day basis. But there are definite strategies that can help. And in addition to using parenting apps, that's one of the reasons they were created, is that they monitor communications. They're a way to document communications. But I recently even posted a blog just that had 9 common phrases that I like my clients to start using when they're responding to allegations, to not feed in to the drama, because that type of personality is constantly trying to hook you, trying to pull you in, they know how to push your buttons. And so it takes practice to be able to not feed into that. And at the end of the day, keep the conflict as minimal as possible, so that your children don't feel it, because that's what it's all about. And that's what makes your situation so difficult, is that you are trying to do the right thing every day for your children. And so, Anne, I don't know if you can speak to this, but you've probably had people that have said, clients, I've had it. I'm at my wit's end. What do I do with this person? They just keep attacking me.
Right. So what I recommend is that they utilize the BIFF method, BIFF, which stands for brief, informative, friendly, and firm. So keep your communication brief, informative, friendly, and firm. Set boundaries and assume everything you write to your former partner, whether it's in a text or an email, is going to end up in a courtroom. And there's nothing more painful than sitting through 2 days of text messages and emails where your client is calling the other party a loser and saying things like, no, I will never agree to take the children to any doctor that you select. That's the quickest way to get the court to order a change in custody. And so if you're struggling with containing yourself before sending that email, use someone like Jackie to help you craft those emails. She's a lot less expensive than I am. Induced me to do that, but after a month of doing that, I assure you,
It's true.
Yeah. But you really need to set clear boundaries, and also you need to not ghost the other party, your spouse. I've seen that backfire in cases where I had a client who insisted that her husband was so abusive she couldn't respond to any of his communication regarding the children's medical treatment. And as a result of that, the judge changed custody with regard to medical decisions to the dad. So you do have to respond. The communication is really important, not just in the courtroom, but you're going to be dealing with this person for the rest of your life. My ex-husband and I are still in communication on almost a daily basis about our children that are in their 20s. So it behooves you to learn how to co-parent because there's no way around it. There just isn't if you've got children together.
Lisa, I saw your comment, and Natasha, yours as well. I remember the first time I actually had a big long text in response to my ex after I had been accused, and there were lies in this text, but he was pushing all my right buttons, and I erased it, and I texted back one of my favorite phrases, which is, "Your need to portray me in a negative light is noted," and that's all I wrote. And you OMB people know what I'm talking about. And when I finally did it, I was like, wow, that is amazing. Like, otherwise I would have fed right into all of his BS. And so it is empowering, but it's hard to get the hang of it. And so.
Jackie, since you sort of touched on it, can you provide maybe like one or two other examples of your go-to phrases so people get an idea of what those might be?
Absolutely. So as I just mentioned, when you just really get some sort of contact or communication that's just all garbage. But sometimes you do feel like you need to respond in some manner because, as Anne said, if you just ghost this person and just shut them down, that could eventually lead to reflecting negatively on you. So a brilliant statement like "your need to portray me in a negative light is noted" is my favorite. My second favorite is "your recollection of the events differs greatly from mine."
That's good.
And then all you'd say, and then you move on with whatever they ask, like, they accuse. "Your recollection of events differs greatly from mine. I will be there at 9 a.m. to pick up Johnny." So in there, they probably had some question. So you're not buying into the BS. You're not responding to it. You're letting whoever reads this know that that's not what happened. But you're doing it in such a calm, succinct, strategic way. And then you answer the important question, which was about your child, which is that you'll be there at 9 a.m. to pick them up. So again, takes a lot of practice, but.
Yeah, for sure. And since we're on the topic of not ghosting, that kind of leads into another question we had for you, which was, can you explain what gray rocking is and elaborate when it's appropriate to use a strategy?
Oh, yes. Okay. So anyone that's on this webinar now that maybe has sat up and Googled personality disorders, probably narcissist, right? Because that's just the one we tend to know the most about or hear the most about. You may have come across the term gray rocking. And for those of you that don't know, basically when you are trying to disengage or separate from a relationship from a high conflict personality, one way to sort of stop the harassment is to go gray rock. And what that means is you become about as interesting as a gray rock to them. So that way they're not getting their supply from you anymore and they go elsewhere. They're not getting the response they want. They're not getting, you're not feeding into the drama and they move on. Now, if you do not have children with someone, I think it's a great strategy. However, you're on this call because you're wondering how to co-parent in a high conflict divorce. And Anne said this earlier, this can actually get you in a lot of trouble. And I actually had a client come to me because she had won majority custody of their child, and then the harassment continued from her ex. In fact, when she won, more custody, it really inflamed the situation, and he really came after her, and she just decided to shut him down, block him, not respond. Well, a few months later, he just documented that she never responded and went back in. He got lucky. They had a different judge, and the judge said, "You're not co-parenting.
Right.
You're not communicating," and gave him a lot of custody back. And she was devastated. She said, "Clearly, I don't know what I'm doing. I need help communicating." And so that is what we work on, like for the majority of her case, is just communicating, getting that down, showing she's cooperating, but also not buying into the drama. So
And
that
hence
is, go ahead.
why collaborative is better than dealing with a judge.
Yes.
Right? That very point.
Right.
Go back to that point.
Absolutely, Nadine.
Yeah.
You have a voice. And like you said earlier, Nadine, they're not only held accountable, but that's where those kind of personalities like to live, right? They like to hide behind the email and hide behind the text and hide in the shadows where no one's calling them on their BS. And so when you're in a situation where you have a group of people that are identifying what they're doing,
right,
you've developed the skills with a coach or your therapist to not buy into it. And then everyone's goal is to keep you move forward. They get shut down.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, these are all really good responses. Since the question came up, Jackie, I'm going to keep this on you because Natasha raised a question that's really relevant. So let's say that someone has to attend court-ordered co-parenting therapy, but their ex hijacks every session, they go off topic, they deny responsibility, they blame. How do you handle a therapist that favors the narcissist and believes that the partner is the difficult one? And Nadine, this might be one for you to jump in on as well.
Yeah, I could start, but then yes, Nadine, for sure, jump in. In fact, I have a great scenario, and then Nadine, I'd love to hear what you think about it as the therapist. So I actually, Natasha, had a case almost exactly like this, a client, and they had been going into co-parenting therapy. And he made it a 3-ring circus, which were her words. And it was just, again, emotionally abusive, your words, he just throwing accusations. And she was defending herself. And by the time they left, she said, "I know the therapist can't tell who's the high conflict person here." And she said, "And these accusations that were so horrible, I feel I have to say something about him, but then we're not getting anything done." So he had gotten up, walked out of the situation. She said, "I hope we never have to go back." They were back in front of the judge. The judge says, "You guys have to go back." She was devastated. I said, "You know what? This is a huge opportunity. This is great." And she thought I was crazy, because what we do is we work on your power statement. And so Nadine, I'm curious what you think about this. What I do with my clients, if you ever on this situation, we sit down and talk about what is your truth? Why are you doing this? What is your goal here? Well, for my children, it's to make them healthier, happier, have a calm environment. I don't know how to do it with this person. So we got verbiage down that sounded something like this. She would interrupt when he kept going. "I'm so sorry. I don't know what he's referring to. What I would really like to say, however, is that I'm saddened by the situation, the conflict here. I want my kids to know that both parents love them. And my fear is, with him continuing on in this manner, we're not getting the attention from you that we need and to help us co-parent, and the reason that we're here. And so I would really like to bring the conversation back to our child." He went off again. She did another version of that speech again. He did it. And pretty soon the therapist was like, "Oh, okay, now it's obvious who the problem is here."
Mm-hmm.
It's you keep trying to bring the conversation back to your children. You just say, "I don't know what he's referring to. This is not productive." And you just practice that verbiage. So Nadine, if you were the therapist in this situation.
If I was the therapist in this situation,
yeah, how would you feel?
I would never be that therapist, because I would note who the narcissistic person or cluster B person was, because that's my expertise, and I would call that person out. I mean, if you're in my therapy room, just know you're coming to couples therapy, And that's why a lot of judges actually don't like it.
Mm.
And that's why a lot of their partners don't allow them to come to therapy with me, because I will say, you're not allowing your partner to speak. You are blaming, blaming, blaming. When somebody blames, it's just a shame arrow. And then the person has to defend. If the person's constantly attacking and criticizing, the person feels the need to defend. And you have to be a good enough therapist, even with a high conflict couple, to get to the emotions, to get to the vulnerability underneath really what's happening. And with a cluster B person, they probably won't go there. But I'm going to tell you something about a cluster B person. There's a hierarchy that they believe in. If you're a good therapist, you have the power, and you can work that person.
Yeah.
You can. But that's a tough gig.
Yeah.
And, you know, it sounds like you coached your client perfectly with that, because the therapist doesn't.
Right. And you're right. And that, yes, that's why you're amazing. And the tough thing is for people in this situation is oftentimes, sometimes and you can speak to this maybe more accurately from a legal standpoint, but a therapist will be appointed and you have no say in it. And then there you are sitting in front of this person who doesn't know either of you.
Do you know how many times the spouses have said in their like agreements, and you know what it's even called, Nadine Macaluso cannot be your therapist.
Right. Yeah. No, it's true. If you end up in a courtroom, I actually went through this myself. I went through a high conflict divorce about 11 years ago, which is why I'm doing this work now, because I felt like we were in trial for over like a 5-year period of time. We were in court about every 6 weeks. And the folks who really suffered from that who did suffer with the children. You know, and they, to this day, we're still dealing with that. And that's why I really wanted to talk about this tonight. Because I do feel that if we can help even one person understand how truly important it is to follow the advice of what really Jackie and Nadine are telling you about not just how to communicate for the court's sake, but for your children's sake. It will change their lives in ways that you can't even imagine, and yours as well. And I really believe there's nothing more important than this. And we get very lost in the moment with wanting sometimes to win, especially if our spouse is narcissistic.
Yes.
And that's the game. You know, that's what they're doing. They're trying to draw us in, because that's their illness, into that game. And it's nobody's a winner, and the children are the losers. And so if you end up in a courtroom like I did, and this is before I was a family law attorney, you're going to be, if that's the person that you chose to be married to, you're going to be fighting about everything, because that's how they keep the dance with you going. So they know they're losing you through the divorce. This is how they keep the energetic connection going, and it's a sickness. And it will ultimately make you sicker than they are. And the judge will order all kinds of things. He'll order the therapist for the kids. He'll order co-parenting for you, where you have to sit down with your ex and try to work things out. And that's why I've come to the conclusion that if you have the option to do this in a collaborative process where you can then choose to work with Jackie and Nadine or whoever you choose to work with, and you stay out of the courtroom, it's kind of amazing what can be done in moving through this process and in creating a pathway to communicate and learning how to communicate with your narcissistic spouse, since you really are going to have to do that for the rest of your life.
Absolutely. All right. And I'm going to throw this back to you. What advice do you have for someone who wants to fight for sole custody due to having a difficult partner?
So the reality of this situation, and I realize we've got people from all over. We even have somebody here tonight from Ireland. And I don't know, I'm not facile with the divorce laws in Ireland, but at least here in California, law provides for each parent to have frequent and continuing contact with the child. So if you're taking notes, or even if you're not, I want you to repeat after me. Frequent and continuing contact. So what that means is that most often courts here will not find that it's in the child's best interest to not have
Much better.
time. Can you hear me?
No, yeah, I'm just saying the sounds got better.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry about the sound, everyone. I think it might be Crowdcast.
Okay, I just think we all need to speak just a little louder.
Okay. So the point I was making is, unless let me say it this way, unless your spouse, the father or the mother of the children, the person you're married to, is physically beating the child, chances are, if you end up in a courtroom, the judge is more likely these days to order 50-50 custody. I talked about that earlier. And I know that some people are finding this hard to imagine, but it's true. So that's the situation. If you're tuning in right now and you're contemplating divorce, I don't know how many of you are in that situation, but the other thing I want you to consider is that courts do look at the status quo, and so do when we're even in the collaborative context. We're trying to figure out what's in the best interest of the children. So one of the legal things that we look at is the law reflects that stability is important for the child. And so courts look at the existing bonds between the parents and the children. So specifically, a judge is going to look at things like how deeply bonded the child is to the parent and the amount of time that's spent with the child. So this would be time spent volunteering at their school, driving them to school, picking them up from school, or walking them to school. Whether you show up at their extracurricular events, whether you're helping them with homework in the evening, making their meals, and whether you're spending time with them on the evenings and weekends. So what you want to do is set up and start being that parent before you end up in a courtroom or even in the collaborative setting. Set up the parenting plan that you want to have ordered. Because whatever process you go through, whether you're in a court or you're in collaborative or you're in mediation, at the end of the day, there will be a judgment, and the judgment is going to identify who has custody, whether it's shared or either you or your spouse has it, and what the visitation schedule is. So you want to get that in place before you start heading down this path.
Awesome. Anne or Nadine, Jackie or Nadine, do you guys have anything to add?
No, I think Anne answered it really well.
Okay.
I would just like to add that, unless there has been drug abuse, as Anne stated, or deep physical and emotional abuse, here's the thing. You chose to have children with this person. And you have to own that, because that is going to greatly affect your children. And I think what happens with people, as a therapist, I can actually, express this, is that we want to put people in categories, and we want to put situations in categories. And you know what? You can really dislike your ex, or else clearly why would you be getting divorced, right? You can even hate them at moments. But you can also hold the tension of the opposites and realize that I don't like my ex and they are my children's parent. And it's your job as a parent to figure out how to do that. And if you can't, right, as Anne is stating, there is a collaborative process where experts can come in almost like holding you in a container and help you both hold the tension of those opposites, help you both through that process for your children, because we have to do things in honor of our children. I mean, that's just our job as a parent, and you must live with your decision. And I always say, my children are now 25 and or 26 and 28. I can't even believe it. And, you know, my ex-husband is the Wolf of Wall Street. So not an easy guy to be divorced from, right? Let's call a spade a spade. A movie was made about my life where I was not portrayed well. My kids, he said, my kids, I want the kids to go to the premiere. Go. I was trained by my mother, luckily. It did me no good to badmouth him, right? He is going to do what he is going to do. They need to have their own relationship with him. And I have my own shadow and light and bad and good, and so does he. And so these are very complex issues and topics to hold, even as a trained PhD person who has a PhD and a mother and a wife and a stepmother. So again, back to what Ann says and what Jackie does, hire people to help you, because it's really challenging, especially if you're dealing with a cluster B person, but it's not impossible. I've done it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so much better to spend that money up front while you're going through it than to get through it messily and then get to the end and be like, I'm so traumatized. I've lost so much. I don't even know where to begin healing.
You know what? I didn't even fight with my ex-husband, which is so ironic. I mean, sometimes today I want to kill him, but you know, I was just like, okay, this is what we're going to agree on. And it's okay. You know, he is the father of my children. There is something bigger than me that decided that. Yes, I was a part of that, and I have to honor that and be there for them. And I always say, I could do it. Everybody could do it with the help of well-trained, caring professionals. You don't have to do it alone.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to weigh in on this. So I went through a really, really high conflict divorce. And again, this is before I was a family law attorney. And this isn't about the law. This is just about my personal experience, which is really, I think, the biggest asset that I bring to my practice is having, I mean, the law is the law. It's not, in family law, it's not rocket science. It's not like patent infringement law, but you know, what we all bring to the table here, Nadine, Jackie, and I, is that we've been through this, right? And we're survivors. And this is what I learned. And it's really important to remember this. If you're tuning in right now, it's probably because you think your spouse is a problem. And I'm sure he or she is. And at the same time, your children need to think that your spouse is either Superman or Wonder Woman. And this is why. If they don't, as they grow up, and if you're bad-mouthing your spouse or complaining about them, right, saying things like, you know, we can't go to Disney World this year because your dad didn't provide child support on time, they are going to think later there's something wrong with them because they have that person's genes. And then you're going to be spending a whole lot of time and money in therapy trying to save them and undo that damage. So you need to be saying, you need a really good therapist where you can get all that out.
Right.
And not use your children as your therapist, no matter how mature they seem to be. Because even if they seem like they're okay and they're your confidant, that is going to bite you in the ass later.
Yep.
In a really, really big way. And I'm not a therapist and I'm not a coach, but maybe Nadine, you can talk about that for a minute, because that's really, I think, where the rubber hits the road. And it's the hardest thing to do, because if you're here with us tonight, it's probably because you're dealing with somebody who's a problem and they're probably infuriating you. And so how do you deal with that in the day-to-day if you're not getting the money and you're waiting to go to court and you're stressed out? Like, what what are the nuts and bolts of how you deal with that so that your children don't become, roadkill?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I'm so glad just everything you said was so beautiful. And being raised by a mother who got divorced from my father when she was 25, really, or 26, and had no family, and we were on welfare. My father never paid her a dime. She never said a bad word about him. You know, she had me write about it. She had me draw about it. We would play music. We would dance about it. I'm sure she wanted to kill him. Actually, I know she did, because when she was dying and I was in the room with her, when I mentioned his name, it was the only time she moved her leg. So she did not like my father. Okay. But she never really let me know that. And that, I can honestly say, was one of the greatest gifts. And we were poor, you know, and she was stoic and she was English, but yet she still allowed me to express my emotions around it. She didn't make she didn't make the divorce and her hatred for my father. She didn't put it on me. She dealt with it in her own way. She read a lot of psychology books back then. She spoke to people, but it's such an important point that you bring up, Anne, because our children cannot be the prisoners that we take through this process. And, you know, like, we can get them through it. There are resources much more than when she was raising us, which was in the 70s, when she was raising me, right? And she educated herself and she learned about these things, and everybody who's on this webinar is doing the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you guys have gone into and answered a couple of the questions that we have here, but I'm going to read them anyway, just in case there's anything you've left out. So Nadine, when children are feeling the tension of a high conflict divorce, what can a parent do to help them through that process? What words and statements are helpful?
The most important thing to ever say to your children is, it's not your fault. Because children have very simple brains. When I was talking before about holding the tension of the opposite, holding two opposing ideas, children cannot do that. Things are black and white. You're good or bad. When children feel bad, they might feel bad through a divorce, then they think they are bad. Children will always self-blame to keep the attachment to the parent. So the number one thing that you can say is, my love, it's not your fault. You know, your father and I, or your mother and mother, or father and father, we love you. We love you. This is between us. And you're going to be okay. We're all going to get through this. You know, we're going to be a family. It's going to look different. And you're going to be okay. But it's not your fault is really important. Have them process it. There are videos, there are books. You know, children have a very active right brain. Let them play around it. Let them express their emotions to you. As Anne was saying, when they come to you with their emotion, that is not the time to make it about you. Validate them. Wow, this must be really sad for you. This must be really hard for you. Validate their emotions. And I told Anne and Jackie this, that even with young children, I've had them lay down on big pieces of paper. I've outlined their body, because sometimes it's hard for them to speak about what they feel. Show me on your body where you feel. Draw your heart. Put words inside your body. Let it be a creative process, especially if they're young. And if they're older, it's a different scenario. I almost think it's sometimes can be harder when children are older and their parents get divorced. But no matter what, allow your children to have a voice about it, what their experience is. Hold that voice for them, hold that for them, and always say to them, it's not your fault, and we both love you.
Yeah, that's so good. So shifting a little bit away from working with children, let's say that the ex is demanding that the children take their side in the divorce. How do you talk to them when they let you know what they're doing, when they let you know that they are doing that to the children?
Well, I mean, I've dealt with this recently with my own children, and I'm not afraid to say that. And my children are older, and I've said to them exactly what I've just stated: use your voice. Let your parent that does that know how it makes you feel. I feel really sad. I feel torn. I'm not going to do that, right? Now, if it's a younger child, they can't do that. It is the parent's job to, and this is always a great statement, call your ex up. I'm curious. I'm really curious. This is what Kelly said that you stated. Is that true? I'm just so curious. I'm so curious. Has saved me as a therapist, as a person, as a mother, as a wife, as a stepmother, thousands of times. Because it's not attacking. Because also maybe your child interpreted it differently if they're younger, right? So I'm curious. I'm telling
it's a good
you,
one.
you can send me a text every time you use it and it works. Jackie, what do you think?
You know what? I have dealt with this exactly, and I get, especially when I've had a couple of cases where they're still in the court setting, and they're like, my child's coming home and saying bad things, or now they know. And so we do get very strategic, because they say if I call my ex on it, the backlash is going to be like, and
Right.
then they're going to accuse me. And I said, that's okay. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to craft a very strategic email that says, this is the third time when Lisa came back, she has stated that you have said X, Y, and Z about me. This really saddens me, because we're supposed to be, really co-parenting and be positive for our child. And I'm really hoping it's not true. But she keeps reiterating that, that this is being said in your household. And what I'm doing there from a coach standpoint is, we're strategically documenting that your child said this. We're doing it without being accusatory. We're doing it coming from a place of curiosity, like you said.
Right.
I'm perplexed by this, by you saying these things about me. And so again, when someone reads your communications, they see that you're just trying to be cooperative. You're calling them on it, but they know you're doing it. And then I always say, brace for impact. That's okay. That we know how they respond. We know, and it's
Right.
okay. You got your email in, you got your, I'm curious. And and they know that it's happening.
Yeah, they know.
And you leave the kid out of it.
Yep.
Nay, you kind of touched on this a little bit, but how does a partner set aside the hatred they feel for their ex? Knowing or thinking that they are a terrible person, why should a partner allow their ex to have time with the children?
I think to save the soul of their children. I mean, hatred is okay. Anger is okay. It's the behaviors that we attach to those feelings that are wrong. And yeah, of course, why you're divorcing the person because you don't like them and you have hatred. But you have to remember, if you're invested in hate in a way, you're allowing the person to have power over you. And it's a bit of being helpless. Like, yes, you get angry that your child has to go see this person with you, yet you have to do it. And I learned this much older as a mother. Children will do what you do, not what you tell them to do. What type of role model do you want to be for your child? I mean, this is such a silly example and has nothing to do with being divorced, but my son, he ate chicken nuggets his whole life. I mean, I thought he was going to turn into a chicken nugget and a French fry, but every night I would eat salmon and broccoli and healthy foods. And then, like, Clara, him at 24, I'm like, what are you having for dinner? He said salmon and broccoli. I nearly fell off my chair. And not that it has to do with divorce, but it's like, you have to be the role model and behave in a way that you would want your child to emulate, even when it's hard.
Yeah.
I want to chime in on this. So I saw a question in the column about parental alienation. And so what I want to do is address that because it's a real thing.
Yes.
And wrap in what Nadine just said. So I have a case right now where I represent the husband, and the mom is engaging in very severe parental alienation with a couple of, they're like, the daughter is a teenager and the son is a preteen. So the daughter's kind of high school age, maybe like a freshman, and the son's in middle school.
Okay.
And so this is a litigated case. This is not a collaborative case. But I'm watching what's going on, and I'm really struck by how the mom is role modeling for this daughter with regard to how the mom's interacting with my client, who's the dad, how to be sneaky and underhanded,
Oh,
and how to lie. And it's really tremendously disturbing to watch this unfold. And parental alienation, for those of you watching this and listening to me, some of you, if you're involved in, you're down the road, you'll know what this is, but this is a legal term of art.
yep.
And so what I will do is go into court and establish over the course of the last few months what's occurred, which I believe we can show that there has been parental alienation. Like the mom's telling the kids they don't have to go with their dad, even though we have a court order where they do. So, and you should know, if you're the custodial parent and the other parent has visitation rights and you're not facilitating those visitation rights, then I can go into court on behalf of my client and argue that there's parental alienation and that under the law, custody should be changed, and that my client, the non-alienator, should have custody of the kids, because courts are very concerned with whether the parents are facilitating co-parenting.
Right.
And so that's why not only it's not the right thing, it's also not the smart thing to do this, because you know potentially it's going to backfire, and more importantly, you're teaching your children through role modeling
That's right.
how to be sneaky and conniving. So,
Yep.
karma.
Yep. Yeah, and Anne, I remember you dealt for a small while with this very severe parental alienation case that I was working with as the therapist, of course. And it's a very tricky, dark road.
Yeah, it's actually really hard to prove.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's hidden, and it's, well, hidden meaning it happens behind closed doors. And typically what we will do is ask for a child custody evaluation. And what that means in the state of California is that a neutral third party, who is someone like Nadine with her background, would be appointed to conduct a investigation. And what they will do is they will talk to the teachers of the children, they'll talk to the doctors, they'll talk to any therapists, they'll go to the parents' homes and observe the children with the parents, and then they will issue a report. I actually had this happen in my own divorce, and there was a 53-page report issued, which then the judge in my case basically used as the blueprint in terms of ordering custody, and I ended up having pretty much full custody of the kids as a result. But those things, there's some case law that came down making the custodial evaluations, it's an evidentiary issue. They're less favored. So the judges are not ordering them as often as they used to.
Right.
But in really severe cases, like the case I'm talking about right now, where I was able to establish that there was parental alienation, the judge did order it sua sponte, which means on her own, she ordered that we would have the custodial evaluation. So it can still happen. And, you know, it puts the whole family through it, but sometimes that's what you have to do if that's happening in order to create a record.
You know, Yeah, I see that Kelly Kennan is asking a question. What if they go after the child for speaking about what was said to them? But then she says, especially if it is said by the step parent. I don't know what that exactly means. Huh?
So, so the parent who, so basically you're afraid that maybe you've outed your child to the parent who's speaking bad about them, and then the repercussions when they go back for,
Right,
Right.
I
right.
guess.
Okay, and especially, oh, especially if it is said by the step parents, and then that partner backs up the step parent. Yes. Yeah, oh, so the step parent speaking badly. Oh, versus the other.
Oh,
Yes. I
that's
mean,
tough.
listen, here's the thing is there's one thing in life. There's one person you can control and it's yourself. That's
Right.
it. I mean, I wish there were, and you can control how you speak to your child about that person. And as Anne's saying, modeling decorum and decency and honesty and truth. And, here's the thing. If you have a moral compass to go back to, your children know that.
Yeah.
And they will struggle through divorce. I mean, you are choosing to get divorced. It's not going to be easy. And especially, I'm a step parent. I had a great step parent again as a role model, but you stay the course of your moral compass and trust me, trust that process. It will be okay. That doesn't mean your child won't suffer through it. And then again, you validate their emotions, but you cannot control your ex-partner, let alone the step parent. That's unfortunately.
Well, and it doesn't go well in those situations. I have a number of cases where the step parent is doing things that I guess I'll just say are not in the child's best interest. So when you're in a courtroom, the judge is really looking at what is in the child's best interest.
Right.
They're really not that concerned about what's convenient for you and your spouse.
Right.
The convenience of what works best for you is not what they're looking at. They're required under the law to consider what is in the best interests of the child. And so if there is a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a step parent that's interfering with that, they'll change custody. And yes, you can only control yourself. However, I had a situation, this situation has come up a lot recently, so I'm going to mention it by way of example, where for some reason the new girlfriend feels compelled to post pictures of the children on her Facebook page and Instagram. And then the dad, calls me in a panic having an emergency because the mom is, throwing a fit. And he's saying to me, but my girlfriend's such a nice person, and I just want the judge to know, she's so proud that these are my kids. And I'll tell you what I told my client the other day. I said, you know what? If you want the judge to change custody so you don't have your kids anymore, tell your girlfriend to just post away. Keep posting. But, there's nothing that's going to make your soon-to-be ex-wife more angry than your new girlfriend posting pictures of her kids. So
Especially if
it's ridiculous.
Especially if she was your mistress.
Just don't do that.
Yeah.
Stop doing that.
Right.
Yeah. Jackie
Yeah.
will tell you immediately to stop doing that. That's just dumb. But
So-
also, the other thing is you don't want to go to court over that. I had another case where literally tens of thousands of dollars were spent litigating this issue about the First Amendment right to post pictures of the children on Facebook. Just don't do that.
Right, because it doesn't have the children's best interest at heart.
No.
Right?
It's ridiculous. It's a power
It's-
struggle. It's about you and the girlfriend, and it has nothing frankly, to do with the kids. That can all wait. And there's no reason for that nonsense to be happening and for you to be, it's like fanning the flames of the fire.
And also, families aren't created instantly. There's no such thing as insta family.
No.
Right? I mean, like, it's not like a Kodak instant moment. I mean, to become a family through a blended family process, which I've done, because I have my children and my current husband has 2 ex-wives. So you really want to complicate it? Okay? And I've been with him 22 years. We're a family now. But the first year we weren't, right?
I am actually living this right now.
Oh, I didn't know that. Congratulations. Thank you for sharing.
And so I will tell you, being the person, the mother on this side, watching it,
yeah,
I have had to do a lot of self-talk, a lot of what's really important here. I could probably go take a legal route about what's happening. So the first thing I had to ask is, are my children being harmed? Is it something, are they super inappropriate? They're not. Okay. They're not. Is it super hurtful and very, claiming they're raising my children, and there were, yes, claiming on their marketing materials that they raise a family of whatever when they were just introduced into the scenario. So I found a place sometimes to laugh, often with friends. I have calmed myself down by realizing that people who know me and love us, we actually pity her and feel bad for her, that she needs to portray this image so badly. Right. That my children are her children. And like the deficit of confidence and all kinds of deficits going on with her. Yeah. And everyone that matters to me knows that I'm a wonderful mother and I deserve all the credit for how wonderful my kids are. Right. And so, so I decided to let her post away, and I'm now coming out on the other side of that emotionally. And I honestly, I went from furious to, I was scheming. I was like, I ran the whole gamut. I was going to get legal about it. I ran the whole gamut. And now I'm actually in a place where I pity her. I feel bad for her. Like it's sad. So anyway, I know that not every situation, I know that can get much messier than that. I know it can get much, maybe, it's things could be happening that are super inappropriate for the children. So I know that my answer doesn't cover all bases, but I just want to say I understand. I've been there, and it's super painful. And it's and then I also realized how much my ex would love if I got fired up about this. Right. He would love it if I even got litigious about it. He would love it if I sent an email saying, knock this off. He would. And so, you know what? I'm not going to give it to him. My kids know who their mom is. My mom.
And you know what, Jackie, you bring up such an important point. Self-soothe. Learn how to self-soothe, because there's going to be emotional bumps. I mean, I'm divorced 22 years later. I had one last week. Right? So you bring up such a beautiful point. Like, soothe yourself through those moments, because that's what's important. That was in the best interest of your children, to not add more drama to their lives. Well done.
Yeah. Good job. No, you're absolutely right. When you're dealing with a narcissist, it goes back to this dance. He's trying to pull you back into the crazy dance. And children are smart. They know how shall I put this? I found that when they go low, I went high. And it really does serve you well. Again, it's not only the right thing, but it's the smart thing. The kids will gravitate to where the love is. And so the love isn't about posting on Instagram.
Totally.
The love is the love of Jackie, their mom, and Nadine and myself, who we were the ones that showed up. We were the ones that were there. We were the ones in the trenches, and they know that, and no court order can change that. And when your children get to be a certain age, they will get to choose. Under the statute here in California, it's 14. But even before that, if they're of sufficient age, sufficient maturity, they get to have a voice.
Right.
And I've litigated this issue many times and I lived it. And if you really come from the heart and stay within yourself and don't let yourself get distracted by the nonsense, the noise, you know, you are the sky, and all of that, the clouds are just noise. And that's what this is. And at some point, you'll be where we are sitting here today, 10 years from this moment in time. And the way you handle yourself is going to be so critically important in how your kids are. And whatever, you know, battle you were fighting, and whether you won or lost, you won't even remember anymore, but you will know if your kids are okay. There will be no doubt in your mind. And so use the resources available to you. Use the divorce coach, use the therapist, read the book I've written about this, and listen to the words that we're speaking. We are your future 10 years from now, and we've learned from our mistakes. And that's why we're volunteering our time right now for Nadine. It's very late, she's in New York, but we believe so fervently in the importance of really truly not allowing yourself to get sucked into the crazy dance.
Oh, Ann, don't worry. It's only 11:15 for me.
So I know we've got about 20 minutes left. I do want to leave time for people to ask their own questions. So as they start to type that into the chat box, I'm going to throw out one last question for the three of you, which is relevant to the time now. So in thinking about the COVID vaccine and parents having different opinions about whether they want their children to have the vaccine, and then broader in just dealing with medications and parents having differing opinions on what medications children should be on. Can you speak to how to handle that?
So this is an issue that is popping up a lot, and I'm probably going to be in court litigating this in the next week. I have a number of situations where one parent is insisting that the kids, like high school age kids, get vaccinated, and the other parent feels very strongly that they shouldn't. And I'm actually on both sides of the issue. So the nice thing about being a lawyer, I know many of you think this is horrible, but I was trained to argue both sides of any issue. And this is kind of an interesting one.
Yeah.
So I think what will happen in the cases where I'm representing the parent who doesn't want the vaccine, this will be my argument next week in court. And it's probably going to be sort of a case of first impression, because none of my colleagues, I've taken a survey, they haven't litigated this yet, so we're kind of interested to see what will happen. But the argument that I'll be making is that, at least here in LA, where the neighborhood that I live in, the kids are not required to be vaccinated to go back to school. And I don't think there's any school system, maybe if somebody lives somewhere, maybe in Northern Ireland, I don't know.
I don't think so.
But I don't know of anywhere where children have to be vaccinated to go back to school, because that would change things. And if that happens, it would change the argument. But the argument I'll be making is, Your Honor, there's no requirement that children be vaccinated to go back to school. It's not mandatory. And you may agree with me or not, but this will be the argument. The drug is still in the experimental phases, and therefore, you should not be ordering that my client has to take these children to be vaccinated under these circumstances. Now, what you need to know is, I think that probably will be the winning argument, and this is why. And you may disagree with me, and that's okay. It kind of doesn't matter, because this is how judges rule. Judges look at what's going on. Let's say I'm in court on Tuesday. So as of Tuesday, if that's true, which it will be, that the schools in Manhattan Beach don't require children to be vaccinated, then they're going to deny that ex parte motion. they're just going to deny it because they don't know what to do at that point. If on Wednesday, kids are required to be vaccinated, well then, if I'm going in on the other side of it, I can argue, well, Your Honor, in Manhattan Beach, the children are required to be vaccinated in order to go to school. So therefore, she has to take them to get vaccinated. And because that's what the rule is on Wednesday, the judge would grant that. So they don't look forward and they don't look back. They look at, whenever you end up in a courtroom, they're looking at what's happening right now today because they don't have a crystal ball.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've seen this. I think we talked about this go down to actual vitamins. I mean,
Right.
literally, the vitamins. I mean, a wife got in trouble for giving her children, I forgot it was a probiotic, that a naturel, something that every child takes. And, you know, that's where someone with a cluster B personality disorder will really use anything against you. I mean,
Yep.
that's just a prime example of that. And that's a tough one to work through. And if it's more, you know, if it's about ADHD or more psychotropic meds, that's why I've seen people handle, you know, hire top neuropsychiatrists for children, and they do like 2 days of 8-hour assessments for the child to actually get to a objective opinion. That's what I've seen happen. But it's tricky because, you know, the child can't decide.
Right.
And if you have a mother that's really dealing with the child all day long, every single day, and the child is not functioning well and doesn't have executive functioning, but the dad doesn't agree, or just the opposite, it can get really tricky. And that's where an objective opinion, again, an expert, can really help.
So I'm seeing a question here. Anne, how do you work with the other attorney who is making things worse as a litigator?
Woo! That's a tough one, Anne.
I kick their ass. Yeah.
And that's why you should hire Anne.
And that's why she makes the big bucks.
That's what we do. Yeah, so that, I mean, honestly, that's what we do. Like we have the skill set. I was a litigator I was a partner at a big international law firm for many years. You know, I'm trained and the lawyers that work with me are trained that, you know, collaborative's great, mediation sometimes works out okay. And even in litigated cases where I get hired to be your lawyer, I'm always trying to resolve things cooperatively. Because again, it's the right thing and the smart thing. It's less expensive, it's less acrimonious. I've been through this, I know that. But you know what? At the end of the day, if somebody is unreasonable and their counsel is unreasonable, you have to go to court. That's why you have a judge. And that's what they're there for. And you need a really, really good lawyer who knows their way around a courtroom and knows how to handle that situation. And you just go in there and you get it done. And so I actually have written a book, and it's called The Divorce Hacker's Guide to Untying the Knot. And in the beginning part of the book, I talk about how to find a good lawyer. And I also created an app, the Divorce Hacker app. And in there, in the book and in the app, are the top 10 questions to ask when you're interviewing lawyers to find a really kick-ass lawyer. Because you want to make sure that you're hiring somebody who does know their way around a courtroom. And a lot of family law attorneys don't. A lot of lawyers that don't want to go to court end up in family law because they think they can just resolve everything. But I'll tell you what, if you're in a situation with an opposing counsel that's impossible, then you know you need a lawyer who can go to court and get the job done. So check out the app, check out the book, and look for those top 10 questions. And Clara could even circulate those after we're done, make those available. Because it's really important to get someone who can get the job done.
You know, Anne, as you're talking, I just like the word triple threat came up for me because you have the personal experience, you have the professional experience, and you also have the emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
And that's
right.
That's the triple threat.
And I love it. I mean, I actually love going to court and kicking ass. If the lawyer and the other party are idiots and they're narcissists, and usually what happens is the your spouse is going to pick a lawyer who's like them. So if they're an asshole, they're going to find an asshole, and that's my favorite. Let's ask him today. I love it. So yeah,
Bring it.
collaboratively, and I do that. But what I really, really like to do is there's nothing like a good ass kicking.
And it's, you know, what's the best part is that when they never see you coming,
Right.
they're like, oh, that, okay, yeah, she's a woman. She's pretty, like, when they don't see you coming and then you nail them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
The
again,
satisfaction.
for the benefit of the children.
Well, so what we typically do is we'll pick our battles and we'll figure out, you know, where we're going to win, and we'll file something. We'll go down if we need to. We'll, you know, we'll have a good result. And then oftentimes when that happens, then we can leverage the settlement that we want to get. So, you know, you really need a lawyer who's skilled in that regard. Sometimes we just file something and it's powerful enough that the other side realizes that they're going to get, you know, that they don't want to go to court. I had a case where I noticed the depositions of the husband, his boss, and his girlfriend on Christmas Eve and the day before that. And the lawyer was like, are you serious? Are you really going to do this? And I said, yeah, I am. And the next day, the husband offered her that house in Manhattan Beach and 60% of all their assets. I mean, you just do what you have to do depending upon who the other lawyer is a very important factor in who you're going to hire, because they need to be able to match them if they're going to end up in a courtroom for sure.
Okay.
I
Sorry.
worked in California. Somebody
Yeah.
asked.
Yeah. And I think that the word leverage is super important.
Yeah.
Because even when I'm in couples therapy and if I'm working with a cluster B or two cluster Bs or, you know, a whole schmadre, I will always tell the underdog what leverage they have and how to use it.
Yeah, even in collaborative, I mean, let's face it, this is sort of like a game. And that's why you need a divorce coach, and that so that you can figure out how to, I mean, this person that you trusted and that you married and that was your best friend and your confidant, ladies and gentlemen, the rules of the game have changed, and you can no longer trust them. You absolutely have to change your mindset. And for many of you, this is going to be the things that happen here will be the most important decisions that you will make in your life, financially and otherwise. Really and truly. I mean, this is going to set you up for your future and whether, you know, you just survive or you thrive. So we are fully committed to making sure, you know, do not be mistaken about all the talk about collaborative and working through it. Like, we are on your side. We are your advocates. We are here for you. And when you're divorcing someone who has a narcissistic personality disorder or it's high conflict, we're trying to figure out the best way to get you what you need and want to set you up for your future and your kids. So it's not all kumbaya. It's really about how is the best way to do that, given what the rules of the game are in the courtroom and who we're dealing with.
Yeah,
I completely agree with that. And I do a similar thing, Nadine, and that with my clients, I really like to go through who their ex is and drill down to where their triggers are, and like you said, you find the leverage.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a little work because we also talk about how to communicate with them, which sometimes you have to swallow a little bit of a bitter pill because we strategize on ways to get them to calm down and things they want to hear. But that all comes from knowing who you're up against and really digging deep and thinking and figuring out how they tick is so much part of the strategy.
So I just want to
Yep.
Go ahead.
go ahead, Nate.
Well,
Clara,
go ahead.
how many articles last year I downloaded about the dark tetrad and narcissists. How many articles do you think it was, Clara?
I think it was probably close to like, I don't know, anywhere in the range of 80 to 100.
Yeah, 100.
Yeah.
Of all the research last year on them.
And now you're writing a book on that.
Yeah, and it's because, you know, like I'm saying, we are loving, kind people, and we do have a moral compass, okay? And again, it's holding the tension of the opposites, right? And we can be badass.
Yeah.
We have a moral compass, we're bright, we know what we're dealing with, and when push comes to shove, we're going to show up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's the important piece.
I love what I do. I feel like this is my calling. You know, when I was a little girl, I did not want to be a divorce lawyer. I thought I was going to be a doctor. But, you know, I ended up going to law school. I loved law school. I was a corporate litigator. And then I went through a really, really tough divorce. And I knew there had to be a better way. And so I feel really fortunate that I can use my skill set with my experience and work with Nadine and Jackie to help people like you. I mean, it's really now what I feel is my calling.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm doing this tonight instead of, you know, hanging out with my puppy and my son. It's because we care. We really care. And I see in the side column, people are asking about, you know, how can they reach us and do tele appointments? And, you know, we do it. I do it by Zoom. I do it in person now, on the phone. We worked all straight through the pandemic. We went to court on a bunch of domestic violence restraining orders because sadly there was a lot of domestic violence in situations that we typically wouldn't have seen because people that shouldn't have been spending that much time together were very frustrated. And so, you know, it's time. We're ready to roll, and we're here for you. And I know Clara will circulate after we're done here about how you can reach us so that we can provide for you the support that you need because we want to.
Absolutely. I see one question here coming up for Anne, and I think we're going to wrap up after that. And I know you don't represent out of the country. Is it country or county? I think it's country, out of the country. What advice would you give for listeners that are tuning in from abroad?
I think it's county.
County?
Well,
Yeah.
it says county. Yeah,
County.
maybe she means Los Angeles County.
So not, outside of LA.
Oh, California.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
So a lot of the things that we've said here and that I've said about the law with regard to what I've said about the law applies to any county in California. The law I was talking about, frequent and continuing contact, best interest, that's the California law. And there are similar analogs in other states. But since I don't practice in other states, you know, I certainly can't give legal advice for somebody who's in Georgia or Texas. And I'm happy to do a consult with you if you're in the state of California, or even if you're not. And I have resources available where I can make referrals at times to folks that are in other counties if it's something that we can't handle. I'm never ashamed or the least bit hesitant to refer cases to other lawyers if I think they're better suited. I've referred cases to a colleague of mine who's in my office, a guy, if I think that the case would be, the client would be better served by having a man represent her or him. And so again, we're very busy, but we're always interested if it's a good fit for you and for us to work together. And if not, I'll do what I can to find someone who can help you.
And I just want to say, and I do as well. That is something that I do. And I have a network of high conflict divorce coaches and consultants that we all there's about 30 of us, and we all talk every day on Slack. And all we do is constantly say, I just asked someone today for a parenting coordinator in North Carolina for a client of mine. And so I can also help in that arena. If I don't have anybody on my list already, I can reach out to a bunch of people who have the recommendations for people who deal with high conflict.
Yeah.
My
Nadine and I have done that as well. And Nadine always refers out if she's full or if she's not practicing in the area. There's tons of resources available.
Tons.
And my assistant is on right now, and she's going to actually post our office email into the chat, so that if you do want to reach out to our firm, she'll post that right now, so that you can reach out to us, because we really are interested in being here for you.
Yes. And along with the email that will go out with links to rewatch, we'll have our respective info on there as well, websites, ways that you can reach us, social media accounts, tons of resources available.
And wait, I have to just ask you this. How did we even meet?
Oh, I remember.
Wait.
remember. So this is a long time ago.
No, I know. I'm like having a senior moment. How did we even meet?
So I remember it very vividly. I remember what you were wearing. I remember everything about this day.
Very
So
important.
a therapist that I know that you knew.
Yeah. Okay.
I had just finished trying a antitrust case.
Okay.
But having been through my very high conflict divorce, I had gone on vacation after the trial. And I sort of had this epiphany while I was on vacation that I wanted to start a support group for women that were going through divorce.
Yes.
And it was before I even imagined I'd be a divorce lawyer. And so this is a long time ago.
Did you come to my office?
Yeah, she introduced me
yes.
to you. I came to your office. I remember you were very fashionably dressed. And I talked about this idea that I had.
Yes.
And that first group that I did, I had a gal who asked me if I could give her some legal advice. And I envisioned that I didn't realize that's what set me on my path. So I gave her legal advice, and it ended up being this massive family law case that went really, really well because I had so much litigation experience.
Yeah.
Well, it clicked for me. I was like, this is my calling. I love this.
Yes,
I mean,
now I remember. I can
fun
express
for
in the
me.
office. You came and talked to me and the other two therapists in the office.
Yep. So that was the beginning of how you and I met, and that literally turned into a thriving legal practice, and that's how I met Jackie.
Yeah, and then I referred you all my pay. Okay, got it.
Yes.
I was go see Ann. I'm getting close. Go see Ann.
No, you've been a wonderful supporter for us.
Okay, I just was like, but wait, for some reason, because it's 11 o'clock, I guess for me, I could not remember. Thank you for reminding me. Thank you all for joining us.
Yes, thank you everyone so much for joining us. I hope this was informative. If you have suggestions for other topics that you're curious about, I'm sure that Anne is going to want to do another one of these soon.
Yes, and we will work on the sounds, because the sound is, I don't know, what's that?
Yeah, it was going in and out. Yeah.
Well,
let us know what you want to hear about. Tell us.
Yeah, tell us. Let us know. We're just going to do it a little earlier.
Yeah.
Or Dr. Nay is,
We would love. What we may do is have advertise another one in some way and have you submit questions, and we'll record it ahead of time and post it for you to watch later. We're figuring out the logistics of all of this, but thank you guys for bearing with us.
Much. Yes.
For tuning
Clara,
in.
thank you, Clara.
Namaste.
For putting it all together.
Yeah. Good night.
Namaste. Good night.
Sweet dreams. Signing off.